Silence isn't indifference, it's information. Here's the hook. If they miss you, why don't they just say it? Why no text, no call, no sign? My friends, most of us were taught the wrong lesson about quiet. We think silence means they don't care, but that's the lie. Silence can be armor, strategy, fear, pride, or simple confusion. And when you learn to read it, you stop panicking and you start winning your peace. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Press that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. It helps more than you think. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in front of a locked door. Behind it, there's music playing, faint but real. You can't see the band, you can't see the room, but you can feel the bass through the floor. That's silence in relationships. You don't see the message, you don't hear the words, but something is still moving on the other side. Silence is not a dead end. It's a closed door with a song behind it. Picture another one. You're playing chess and they stop moving their pieces, not because they quit, but because they're thinking. They want you to make the next move. That pause isn't peace, it's pressure. Or think of a radio with a little static. You twist the dial and the voice fades, comes back, fades again. The station still exists. You just need a steady hand to tune it. Stoic rule: steady hand first, reaction second. Man conquers the world by conquering himself, said Zeno, the father of Stoicism. Easy English: master your mind, and you master the moment. If they go quiet, you don't beg, you don't spiral, you don't build stories in your head. You breathe. You choose action you can control. You keep your frame. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Their silence is an outside event. Your calm is your territory. Let's break the lie we often tell ourselves. If they cared, they'd reach out. Not always. People stay silent for messy human reasons: pride, fear of rejection, ego, even the opinions of their friends. Sometimes they're angry. Sometimes they're confused. Sometimes they're waiting to see if you will chase. And sometimes, and this might sting a little, they don't talk because your calm is testing them more than their silence tests you. A little fun truth. No, the universe did not put their phone on airplane mode for 3 weeks straight. But also, no, your worth is not a notification bubble. Here's a picture you'll remember. Silence is a gym. At first the weight feels too heavy. Your arms shake. You want to drop it. But if you hold with good form, breath in, breath out, you grow. Every day you don't react from panic, you get stronger. Every day you don't send that needy paragraph, you get clearer. And clarity is freedom. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of the pain here isn't in the silence, it's in the story we attach to it. So what do? We don't fight for control we don't have. We don't play mind games. We don't perform on social media to prove we're fine. We get actually fine. Sleep, water, training, purpose, real work, real friends, real life. When you build your center, the noise outside loses its power. And here's the secret. The steadier you become, the more silence turns from their weapon into your mirror. You see yourself, you grow, you level up. My friends, today we choose strength over stories. If they speak, good, we listen with boundaries. If they stay quiet, good, we move with dignity. Either way, we win by staying grounded. Now, let's step into this lesson together. Type the words in the comments. Calm over chaos. Press like and subscribe so you don't miss the next step, and stay with me. Number 1. Pride over vulnerability. Pride is concerned with who is right. Humility is concerned with what is right. That's William Ward, and it cuts right to the bone. Because when they miss you but stay silent, it's often not about indifference, it's about pride. The kind of pride that whispers in their ear, "Don't let them see you weak. Don't give them the satisfaction. Don't be the one to break." And so, even when their heart aches, even when their mind replays your voice late at night, they lock themselves in silence. On the outside, it looks like coldness, but on the inside, it's a storm. Imagine this. A soldier stands behind a shield. Behind that shield, they are trembling. They want to scream, to step forward, to admit they miss the warmth of your presence. But their pride tells them the shield must stay up. It's safer to look strong than to risk being vulnerable. So they hide, even from themselves. You might think, if they truly care, why don't they just drop the shield? But ask yourself, how many times have you, yourself, swallowed your truth just to avoid the risk of rejection? That's the same battle they're fighting. And here's the cruel part. Pride feels powerful, but it weighs heavy. It doesn't free them, it cages them. They scroll through old photos and messages, but never press send. They hover over your profile, but never leave a trace. They rehearse conversations in their head, but silence wins every time. It's not because they've forgotten. It's because admitting they still feel something would mean exposing their heart to the possibility that you've already moved on. This is where the lie hides. The lie most people believe is that silence equals indifference, that if someone isn't reaching out, they must not care. But my friends, that's not truth. It's projection. Silence often means the opposite. It means they feel so much that they can't bear to risk showing it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Their silence is their attempt at controlling an outside event, your perception of them. But the irony is, in trying to control what you see, they lose control of their own peace. Think about this through another metaphor. Imagine carrying a heavy armor suit everywhere you go. At first, it feels like protection. No one can pierce you, no one can wound you. But after hours, after days, the weight becomes exhausting. That's what pride does. It convinces them they are strong because they aren't speaking, but deep down, the silence is crushing. They miss you. They feel the ache of your absence, but pride convinces them it's better to suffer alone than to risk appearing vulnerable in your eyes. And so, questions fill their mind. What if I reach out and they don't respond? What if I say I miss them and they've already replaced me? What if my vulnerability makes me look desperate? These questions grow louder with every day of silence. The fear of rejection overshadows the longing to connect, and instead of risking an answer, they choose the illusion of safety, the quiet. But here's where Stoicism gives us clarity. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Their silence isn't rejection. It's simply their reaction to fear. They cannot stop missing you, but they can stop themselves from showing it. And in that choice, they feel a small sense of control. But my brothers, that control is not strength. It's fragility disguised as strength. Now, this is where your mindset as a man matters. Many fall into the trap of taking silence personally. They assume they must not care anymore, and so panic rises. They rush to break the quiet, to demand answers, to chase clarity. But what happens when you do that? You surrender your frame. You step into their storm, carrying the weight of their pride for them. That is not Stoic strength, that is emotional slavery. The Stoic path is different. A man rooted in discipline sees their silence for what it is, their burden, not his. He doesn't bend to it. He doesn't let it poison his peace. He observes calmly, like a mountain watching a storm pass by. Because here's the truth, their silence belongs to them. Your calm belongs to you. And once you understand this separation, their silence stops being a chain around your neck. Think about how powerful that is. While they sit in silence, fighting against their pride, you move forward, grounded. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't crumble. You carry on, building yourself. And the more you stay rooted in your calm, the heavier that silence becomes for them. Because they begin to realize their pride is costing them the very presence they miss. That's the paradox. In trying not to look weak, they actually deepen their own suffering. Let me give you another picture. Imagine two people standing on a bridge. One is frozen, terrified of stepping forward, afraid the bridge won't hold. The other walks calmly across, step by step, steady, confident. Which one has more power? The one who moves, even if the bridge creaks, or the one who lets fear of falling keep them stuck. That's the difference between their pride and your calm. They stay frozen. You keep moving. And this is what makes you unforgettable, not by chasing, not by pleading, but by showing a rare strength, discipline in silence. Because most people can't handle silence. They panic, they break, they reach out just to soothe their discomfort. But when you refuse to be broken by it, you reveal your worth without saying a word. And that presence, that steadiness, will echo in their mind louder than any text or call could. So, what's the lesson here? Don't take their pride personally. Don't mistake silence for absence. Understand it as their shield, their heavy armor, their fear of being seen. And while they struggle under that weight, you choose lightness. You choose peace. You choose discipline. Write this affirmation in the comments to remind yourself and to show the world around you, calm is my power. Because that's what will separate you from the crowd. That's what will turn silence from a source of pain into a proof of strength. And stay with me, because what comes next will dig even deeper into the illusions behind silence, and how you, by mastering yourself, always end up holding the true power. Number 2, the illusion of control. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. That's Epictetus, and it tears the mask right off the game so many people play. Because sometimes, when they miss you but stay silent, it isn't pride alone. It's strategy, or at least they think it is. They believe their silence gives them power, that by withholding their words, they can keep you chasing. On the surface, it looks like control. But underneath, it's not strength, it's restlessness. It's a tug-of-war between longing and fear. Picture this. Someone holding a fishing line out in the water, not because they need the fish, but because they want to see if it bites. That's what silence often becomes, a baited hook. They don't reach out, not because they've forgotten, but because they're waiting to see if you will. Every unread message, every unanswered call, every day of silence is their way of casting the line, hoping you'll tug on it, hoping you'll prove you still care. But here's the question, is that control, or is that dependence disguised as control? Because if their entire peace depends on your reaction, then who really has the power? They might believe their silence is a weapon, but the truth is, the silence says more about their inner storm than about you. And let's be honest, folks, this is where most men stumble. They see silence as a trap they must escape from. They can't bear it. They interpret it as rejection, as loss, and they rush to break it. They double text. They send long explanations. They beg for clarity. They think, if I don't respond, they'll move on. But that reaction is exactly what gives away their power. Because the moment you move out of fear of being forgotten, you prove their silence worked. You hand them the control they never truly had in the first place. Think of it like a magician's trick. They wave their hand to distract you, but the real move is happening elsewhere. Silence is the distraction. It makes you look in the wrong direction. You think they're holding all the cards, but in reality, the trick only works if you fall for it. If you don't move, if you don't panic, the illusion falls apart. The magician has nothing. Let's dig deeper. Why do they even believe silence equals control? Because silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. When you don't know what's going on, your mind fills in the blanks. You start asking yourself questions that sting. Did they stop caring? Did I do something wrong? Have they replaced me? That's what they're banking on, that your imagination will torture you enough that you'll reach out just to make the questions stop. But my friends, here's the lie you need to break. Uncertainty isn't always a trap. It's an opportunity. It's the space where your discipline grows. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Silence isn't the pain. Your interpretation of it is. If you believe silence equals rejection, you'll panic. If you see it as a test, you'll feel pressured. But if you recognize it simply as quiet, a pause, a choice they've made, you remove its teeth. You stop bleeding from the illusion. Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine a chessboard. They stop making moves. The clock is ticking, but they fold their arms and stare at you, waiting. Do they still control the game? Only if you let them. Because here's the secret. The clock is on them too. Their silence doesn't freeze time. It doesn't make the board theirs. It only reveals their unwillingness to move. And in that stillness, you don't crumble. You sit back. You wait. You remind yourself, I will not be rushed. I will not be baited. My peace is not up for negotiation. The Stoic man doesn't confuse silence with power. He sees through it. He knows the difference between genuine control and the illusion of control. Genuine control is mastery over oneself. Illusion of control is a performance meant to provoke others, and when you refuse to participate in the performance, the illusion collapses. Think of a firework, loud, bright, meant to catch your attention. But what happens if you simply look away? The noise dies in seconds, the light fades, and you return to your calm. Their silence works the same way. It only has as much power as the attention you give it. Now, let's not pretend this is easy. It's difficult to hold your ground in silence, because your own fears whisper to you, what if they don't come back? What if they forget you? What if your calm pushes them further away? Those fears are the weight every man has to lift. It's uncomfortable. But just like training in the gym, discomfort is what builds strength. Every moment you resist the urge to react, you grow. Every day you sit calmly with the quiet, you prove to yourself that you're not owned by someone else's game. Here's the irony. The longer you hold the silence, not out of spite, but out of self-mastery, the more the weight shifts back onto them. What they thought was control begins to backfire. They expected you to chase, but you didn't. They expected you to break, but you stayed steady. And now they feel the pressure of their own quiet. The very weapon they tried to use against you becomes their burden to carry. Imagine a mirror. They held it up, hoping you'd see yourself as weak, desperate, incomplete. But instead, what happens? They look into it and see their own hesitation, their own longing, their own unrest. That's the power of staying calm. You don't just survive the silence, you flip it. You make it work against the very person who tried to use it against you. And here's where Stoicism shines brightest. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You win not by breaking their silence, but by mastering your reaction to it. That's where real power is found. Because once you conquer your own impulses, no one else can play you. So, what's the motivation here? It's this. You don't have to fear silence. You don't have to scramble for reassurance. You don't have to chase just to feel wanted. You already hold the power if you keep your peace. Because silence isn't control. It's noise pretending to be music. It's bait pretending to be power. And the man who knows his worth will never bite. Write this affirmation in the comments to remind yourself and to show the world around you, silence doesn't control me. Let it be your anchor, because once you embrace that truth, the game ends. And stay with me, because what comes next will dig even deeper into the fear that hides behind silence, the fear of rejection, and how you can turn that fear into clarity instead of chains. Number 3. Fear of rejection. Men are not afraid of things, but of how they view them. That's Epictetus, and if you let it sink in, it exposes one of the deepest truths about why they stay silent, even when they miss you. Because often, silence isn't about pride, and it isn't even about control. It's about fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of reaching out and being met with nothing but quiet on your end, the fear of opening up their heart only to have it dismissed, ignored, or worse, shattered. Imagine them late at night, phone in hand. Their thumb hovers over the screen, typing out a message. "I miss you." Simple words, vulnerable words, but before they press send, fear tightens its grip. What if you don't respond? What if you leave them on read? What if you've already moved on and their confession only exposes how stuck they still are? That storm of questions roars louder than their longing, and in that moment it feels safer to delete the message and say nothing at all. This is the paradox of silence born out of fear. They ache to speak, but the weight of imagined rejection keeps them paralyzed. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that's exactly what's happening here. The rejection hasn't even happened yet, but in their mind, they've already lived through it 100 times. Every possible cold response, every ignored text, every imagined scenario of you turning away. The pain of those imagined moments feels heavier than the pain of missing you, and so silence becomes the shield that protects them from their own fears. But here's the hard truth. Silence doesn't actually protect them. It only prolongs their suffering, because every unspoken word builds pressure inside their chest. Every day of not reaching out becomes another reminder of the longing they're trying to hide. They think silence is safety, but really it's a cage, a prison built out of what-ifs. And while they sit in that prison, you might misread the situation entirely. You might believe their silence means you've been forgotten, that they don't care. But in reality, silence often screams the opposite. It's the sound of someone afraid to lose twice. Let's break the lie most people fall into. The lie is this: if someone really misses you, they'll tell you. That's what we're told in songs, in movies, in stories. But human psychology is far more fragile. Missing someone doesn't always equal reaching out. Sometimes, the stronger the missing, the stronger the fear of rejection. Because the more they still care, the greater the risk feels if you no longer care back. Now, from your perspective as a man grounded in Stoicism, this is where discipline matters. Because fear of rejection isn't just their battle, it's a mirror. How many times have you let your own actions be ruled by fear? How many times did you avoid speaking your truth, not because you didn't feel it, but because you feared the answer might hurt? This is why understanding their silence can free you. You stop taking it as a wound to your ego and start seeing it for what it really is, their fear, not your failure. Imagine this like standing on the edge of a cliff. They want to leap, to bridge the gap between you, but below they see only sharp rocks. In their mind, the fall is certain, the pain unavoidable. They forget that maybe, just maybe, there's water waiting instead of stone. So they step back, choosing not to risk it. Silence is them standing at the edge, staring down, trembling at the thought of falling. And here's where Stoicism reshapes everything. A Stoic man doesn't see rejection as devastation. He sees it as clarity. He understands that rejection isn't a verdict on his worth. It's information. It tells him where not to invest his energy. It saves him from wasting his time on illusions. Most men panic at rejection, but the Stoic welcomes it because clarity is always better than fantasy. Think of it like walking through a foggy forest. You can't see the path ahead. You can either wander endlessly, hoping you're going the right way, or you can shine a light, even if that light reveals a dead end. The dead end isn't failure, it's freedom. It's knowledge that tells you to turn around and find a better road. That's what rejection truly is. And once you see it this way, fear of it loses its grip. But for them, caught in their silence, they haven't made that shift. Their mind clings to the fear. If I stay quiet, at least I won't know for sure. That's the lie they tell themselves, that not knowing is safer than facing the truth. But all it does is extend their suffering, because every day of silence is another day of wondering, another day of tormenting themselves with maybe. Now here's where your role as a man comes in. You cannot carry their fear for them. You cannot break their silence just to ease their discomfort. That's where most men lose their frame. They rush in, thinking they're rescuing someone, when in reality they're surrendering their own peace. The Stoic doesn't do that. He recognizes that their fear of rejection is their storm to weather. His job is not to calm their storm. It's to remain calm in his own. Picture yourself as a lighthouse. The sea is rough, the waves crash, the storm rages. Ships may hesitate to come closer, afraid of what might happen if they approach. But the lighthouse doesn't chase the ships. It doesn't move into the storm. It stands steady, shining its light, grounded on the rock. That's you. Their silence is the storm. Their fear is the crashing wave. And your role is not to move. It's to remain, to let them either find their way toward you or not. But either way, your light stays on. And here's the irony. When you don't react to their silence, when you don't let fear of rejection infect you, you become unforgettable. Because you are no longer tied to their hesitation. You are no longer begging for their validation. You are calm, rooted, strong. And while they wrestle with what-ifs, you live in what is. That contrast is magnetic. It unsettles them because it reveals their fear is not mirrored in you. So the lesson is this: don't let their silence define your worth. Don't let their fear of rejection become your fear too. Recognize it for what it is, a reflection of their inner battle. And while they sit frozen at the cliff's edge, you keep walking your path. If they leap, good. If they don't, you still move forward, because your peace was never supposed to depend on their courage. Write this affirmation in the comments to anchor this truth. Rejection is clarity. Say it, show it, own it. Because once you embrace that, silence loses its sting and rejection loses its chains. And stay with me, because next we'll break down how silence often isn't just fear. It's a test. And when they test your resolve, the Stoic man never breaks. He only sharpens. Number 4. Testing your resolve. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Those are the words of Marcus Aurelius, and they hit harder than most people realize. Because when they miss you and stay silent, sometimes it isn't about pride or fear, it's about testing you. They want to see if you'll break first, if your emotions are still tethered to them, if you'll rush to fill the gap they've created. And in that silence, the real question isn't about them, it's about you. How will you respond? Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a child holding a toy, pretending not to care about it. They set it down, glance away, and wait. If someone else picks it up, suddenly they're alert, claiming, "That's mine." Their pretense of indifference wasn't real. It was a test to see if anyone else valued what they held. That's how silence works as a test in relationships. They step back, they withhold, they pretend not to care, all while waiting to see if you'll scramble to prove your value. This is the reality most men don't want to face. Silence can be a deliberate pause, a manufactured distance designed to reveal your hand. Will you panic? Will you beg? Will you break? Or will you remain calm, unmoved, steady? That's what they're watching for, even if they don't admit it. And here's the dangerous part. Most men fail this test. They feel the discomfort of silence like a fire in their chest. The longer the quiet stretches, the more unbearable it feels, so they rush to extinguish it. They send text after text. They apologize for things they didn't even do. They plead for reassurance. They think they're saving the connection, but in truth, they're surrendering their strength. They've proven exactly what the silence was designed to measure, that their emotions are still easily controlled. But the Stoic man, the disciplined man, understands this game for what it is. He doesn't interpret silence as abandonment or rejection. He sees it as an opportunity to sharpen his patience. He doesn't scramble to fill the void. They created it. Let them sit in it. His responsibility is not to pass their test, but to stay rooted in his own principles. Think of this test like a rope being tugged in a game of tug-of-war. They let go of their end for a moment, waiting to see if you'll stumble backward when there's no resistance. If you fall, they know you've lost balance. But if you remain standing, holding your rope steady, you prove that your strength doesn't depend on whether they're pulling or not. This is where Marcus Aurelius's wisdom becomes practical. The silence itself isn't the pain, it's your interpretation of it. If you see it as abandonment, you'll crumble. If you see it as rejection, you'll chase. But if you see it simply as stillness, you free yourself. You realize the silence is not a trap unless you step into it. Let me give you a metaphor you'll remember. Imagine standing in the desert, staring at a mirage. From a distance, it looks like water. Your throat is dry, your lips cracked, and you're tempted to run toward it. But when you get closer, it vanishes. It was never water at all. That's what silence as a test really is. A mirage. It promises something, clarity, control, power, but it disappears the moment you rush to chase it. The real strength is in standing still, drinking from the well you've already built within yourself instead of chasing illusions on the horizon. Now, why do they even test your resolve? Because uncertainty is powerful. If they're not sure whether you still care, silence becomes their measuring stick. If you break first, it confirms their hold over you. If you don't, it unsettles them. It forces them to question their own strategy. They wonder, why haven't they reached out? Do they not miss me? Have they already moved on? The silence they intended to control you with begins to weigh on them instead. Here's the paradox. The test they created for you becomes their own test. because the longer you hold steady, the heavier the silence becomes for them. What they thought would expose your weakness ends up exposing theirs. They start feeling the ache of their own strategy. They expected you to crumble, but instead it's them who feels unsettled. And here is where Stoicism offers you the ultimate advantage. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Passing this test isn't about ignoring them forever or playing games. It's about mastering your impulses. Most men lose because they can't endure the discomfort of silence. They mistake impulse for action. But the Stoic man knows impulse is not command. Just because you feel the urge to reach out doesn't mean you must. Just because the silence is uncomfortable doesn't mean you need to break it. Think of patience like a muscle. At first, it trembles under the weight, but the more you train it, the stronger it grows. Each day, you resist the urge to panic text. Each moment you stay calm in the silence, your patience strengthens. You begin to realize the silence doesn't control you, you control you. And that realization is liberating. Let me ask you something, my friends. What would change in your life if you stopped letting silence dictate your peace? What if you saw it not as punishment, but as practice, not as rejection, but as refinement? That shift alone could change everything, because once you stop fearing silence, no one can use it against you again. And here's the motivational charge. When you remain calm in the silence, you reveal a rare kind of strength, a strength that doesn't need validation to breathe, a strength that doesn't crumble under pressure. That steadiness makes you unforgettable because it's so uncommon. Most people play the game, few rise above it, and rising above it is exactly what makes you different. So the next time you feel tested by silence, remember this: it's not about winning their game. It's about proving to yourself that you can't be moved by it. That's where true victory lies, because when you refuse to play, you've already won. Type this affirmation in the comments right now: stillness is my strength. Let it remind you and show the world around you that you're not a man who breaks under silence. You're a man who sharpens in it. And stay with me, because next we're going to uncover another hidden reason behind their quiet, the weight of appearances, and how silence often says more about the audience they're trying to impress than about the feelings they're trying to hide. Number 5. Social appearances. It is not what others say about you that harms you, but what you believe about yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote that centuries ago, and it slices straight into the heart of why they sometimes stay silent, even when they miss you. Because the truth is, their silence isn't always about you. It's about the audience around them. Social appearances, reputation, the image they want to project. And often, that image matters more to them in the moment than honesty does. Imagine this, my friends. They told their friends, "I'm done. I'm over it. I don't need them anymore." They painted themselves as the strong one, the one who walked away. Maybe they even posted online, showing smiling selfies, captioned with "living my best life" or "new chapter." On the surface, it looks polished, untouchable. But beneath all that performance, the silence they choose isn't emptiness, it's self-preservation. They miss you, they feel the pull, but they can't break the illusion they've built in front of their audience. To reach out would be to risk exposure, to admit maybe they weren't as strong, as independent, or as over it as they wanted everyone to believe. Think of it like wearing a mask at a masquerade. The mask is beautiful, designed to impress the crowd, but wearing it too long becomes suffocating. Silence, in this case, is the mask. It protects the image, but it suffocates the heart. They hold back their words not because they don't feel, but because they fear what others might say if they let the truth slip out. This is where the lie reveals itself. The lie is that silence means strength, that appearing unbothered means they've won. But appearances are fragile. They're built for the eyes of others, not for the peace of the soul. And when someone values appearances more than authenticity, their silence says more about their weakness than about your worth. Now let's go deeper. Think about the influence of their social circle. A friend might whisper, "Don't text them first. It'll make you look desperate." A family member might remind them of old arguments, fueling hesitation. They listen, they absorb, and suddenly their choices aren't even their own anymore. Their silence is shaped by the voices around them. In trying to protect their reputation, they sacrifice their honesty. And here's the irony: while they protect their image, the silence eats away at them privately, because when they scroll late at night, when they see your name, when memories creep in, they feel the pull. But then they remember the performance, the audience, the expectations, and so they swallow their truth again. They post another photo, write another caption, tell another friend, "I'm fine." But fine is just another mask. From a Stoic perspective, this is where wisdom separates the strong from the fragile. The Stoics taught that reputation and gossip belong to the realm of externals, things outside of your control. Epictetus said it clearly: "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What does that mean? It means appearances are fleeting. What people say about you is nothing compared to who you truly are. A man rooted in his character doesn't live for the audience. He lives for his principles. And here's where your edge lies. While they're trapped in appearances, you don't have to be. You don't need to prove anything on social media. You don't need to defend yourself against whispers. You don't need to chase after their silence just to look strong. Your focus is inward: discipline, integrity, peace. That's why Stoicism feels so radical in a world obsessed with image, because while others live for likes and comments, you live for character. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine two houses. One is a mansion, painted beautifully on the outside, manicured lawns, shining windows. But inside, the foundation is cracked, the walls are hollow, the rooms are empty. The other house is smaller, simpler, but built on stone, solid, unshakable, weatherproof. Which one lasts longer? That's the difference between appearances and character. Their silence is the mansion. It looks impressive to outsiders, but inside, it's fragile. Your silence, when rooted in Stoic strength, is the stone house, simple, unshakable, real. Now, you might be tempted to ask, but what if their silence lasts forever? What if they never break the mask? That's where Stoicism becomes your weapon, because the Stoic man doesn't demand authenticity from others. He demands it from himself. If their silence continues, it reveals they value image more than truth. That's clarity, not loss. You don't waste energy trying to pull off someone else's mask. You keep walking in your own truth. And here's the twist: masks eventually slip. Performances eventually crack. Because no one can carry silence forever without it betraying them. Friends start noticing the hesitation in their voice. Family sees the late-night scrolling. Even their carefully curated social media starts to show cracks, posts that feel more like trying too hard than actually thriving. Appearances always fade, but character doesn't. So while they perform for the world, your role is to stand firm. You don't have to engage in their play. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to defend against gossip. You just have to remain steady in your lane. Because eventually, the contrast becomes undeniable. Their silence begins to look like fragility. Your calm begins to look like power. And power, real power, doesn't need an audience. It just is. Let's make it practical. The next time you see them post something designed to show they're fine without you, don't take the bait. Don't analyze the photo. Don't dissect the caption. Don't let appearances dictate your peace. Ask yourself instead, am I living aligned with my principles? Am I acting from strength or from ego? Because your worth is never measured by what they post or what they say to their friends. Your worth is measured by how you carry yourself in silence, and that, my brothers, is the real win, because while they're trapped in the prison of appearances, you're free. Free to live, free to grow, free to move forward without needing validation from anyone. That's what makes you unforgettable. The man who doesn't need to perform, doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to mask. The man whose strength is quiet but unshakable. So let's close this section with an affirmation. Write this in the comments to anchor it in your mind. Character over image. Because at the end of the day, appearances fade, but character remains. And when their silence finally breaks and the mask slips, it won't be the performance they remember. It will be the rare steadiness of the man who never played the game. Stay with me, because what's coming next digs even deeper. Sometimes silence isn't about appearances, it's about unfinished anger. A storm of resentment mixed with longing, and that kind of silence burns hotter than indifference. Let's break it down together. Number 6, unfinished anger. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Marcus Aurelius wrote those words, and they describe perfectly why sometimes, even when they miss you, they remain silent. Because silence isn't always emptiness. Sometimes silence is fire, not the fire that warms, but the fire that burns. They may miss you deeply, they may long for your presence, but their silence is tied to anger they haven't released. And until that anger cools, their voice stays locked inside. Think of it like this. Picture a volcano. Deep underneath, pressure is building. Heat, steam, molten rock, all trapped beneath the surface. On the outside, everything looks calm. But that silence isn't peace. It's tension. It's the weight of emotions colliding, longing on one side, resentment on the other. That's what unfinished anger feels like. They want to reach out, but the moment they think of doing it, memories of past arguments, disappointments, or wounds rise up and choke the words before they escape. This is where most men make the mistake. They look at silence and think they don't care, but in reality, silence tied to anger means they care too much. They're still emotionally hooked. They replay what was said, what was done, sometimes twisting the memory in their own mind until it cuts even sharper than it did in the moment. They convince themselves, I can't reach out. Not after what happened, not while I still feel this way. Their silence becomes a punishment, not only for you, but for themselves. Now, let's break the lie. The lie is that silence from anger equals indifference, that because they're quiet, they've moved on. But anger is an active emotion. It requires energy. Indifference is empty, but anger is fire that feeds itself. Their silence is not the absence of feeling, it's too many feelings colliding at once. And the Stoics remind us, anger itself is more destructive than the thing that caused it. Think of a storm at sea. The waves crash, the wind howls, lightning splits the sky. If you're in the middle of it, you can't hear a thing. You can't navigate. You can't communicate. That's what unfinished anger does. It drowns out their ability to express what they truly feel. They might miss you, but the noise of their frustration is louder than their longing. And so, silence feels like the only choice. From your perspective, this is where Stoicism becomes your weapon. A man without discipline reacts to angry silence with panic or frustration. He might rush to soothe, sending messages to calm the fire, or he might lash back, throwing his own anger into the storm. But both reactions do the same thing. They fuel the fire, and a fire-fed will only grow stronger. But the Stoic man knows another path. He doesn't see their angry silence as rejection. He sees it as a storm they must weather themselves. He doesn't chase it. He doesn't rage against it. He doesn't let it disrupt his balance. Instead, he stands steady, like a stone in the middle of a rushing river. The water crashes, swirls, even foams at its edges, but the stone remains. Over time, the current passes, and the river calms. That's your role in the face of unfinished anger, not to drown in it, not to fight it, but to outlast it. And here's the truth that hurts but frees. Their silence is not your responsibility to fix. Their anger, their memories, their grudges, that's their weight to carry. You don't have to carry it for them. You don't have to crumble under it. You don't have to respond to it with fire of your own. You just have to guard your peace. This is why silence tied to anger can actually be an opportunity for you. It's a chance to practice patience, to practice detachment, to remind yourself that not every storm deserves your ship. And ironically, when you don't react, the silence begins to backfire. Because anger is exhausting. They can only replay the past so many times before it burns them out. And when the fire dies down, what remains is the longing they tried to hide. The truth that beneath the frustration, they still miss you. Think of it like holding a torch. At first, the flame is bright, but the longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Your arms ache, your grip weakens, and the flame begins to waver. Anger works the same way. They can hold it for a while, but over time, it wears them down. And when that happens, the silence they thought was strength starts to feel like suffering. Now, let's make this practical. What do you do when you sense their silence is fueled by anger? You don't push. You don't demand answers. You don't try to fight their storm. You let your stillness be the answer. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Apply that here. The best way to respond to angry silence is not with your own anger, not with desperation, but with calm dignity. Their storm is theirs. Your peace is yours. And here's the motivational truth. When you hold your ground in the face of unfinished anger, you reveal strength most men don't have. Most men rush to soothe or to fight. But when you can stand steady, you become unforgettable. Because you're not controlled by their fire, you're anchored in your calm. And that calmness will echo long after their anger cools. So remember this, unfinished anger doesn't mean they've forgotten you. It doesn't mean they don't miss you. It means they're still fighting battles inside themselves. Battles between longing and resentment, memory and desire, pride and vulnerability. You cannot fight those battles for them, but you can choose not to be dragged into them. Here's the affirmation I want you to write in the comments to anchor this truth and show the world around you. My peace is untouchable. Say it, type it, claim it, because when you understand this, you no longer fear silence born out of anger. You no longer scramble to fix it. You see it for what it is, a temporary storm. And storms always pass. Stay with me, because next we're going to go even deeper into another reason behind their silence, the hope that you will move first. A silence not born out of fire, but out of longing mixed with hesitation. And when you see through that, you'll understand how often silence speaks louder than words ever could. Number 7. Hoping you'll move first. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. It exposes another hidden layer of why they stay silent, even when they miss you. Because sometimes their silence isn't pride, it isn't strategy, and it isn't even unfinished anger. Sometimes their silence is hope. Hope that you'll move first. Hope that you'll be the one to break the ice, to bridge the gap, to make the first move so they don't have to risk their heart. It's not that they don't miss you, it's that they're waiting for proof that you miss them too. Picture it like a chess game at a stalemate, both sides staring at the board, neither one willing to move. Not because there are no moves left, but because moving feels dangerous. They sit, silent, staring, waiting, thinking, if they miss me, they'll show it. If they still care, they'll make the first move. That's the quiet logic behind their silence. But here's the irony. It's not strength, it's hesitation wrapped in hope. It's vulnerability covered by a thin shell of self-protection. Imagine them at night, lying in bed with their phone beside them. They scroll back through old conversations. They hover over your name. They type a message and delete it, over and over. Their heart pushes them to reach out, but their fear pulls them back. So they compromise, not by acting, but by waiting. If they feel the same, they'll reach out first. That's what they tell themselves. It makes them feel safe. It convinces them they aren't risking rejection. But in truth, every day of silence only makes their longing louder. And this is where the lie needs to be broken. The lie is that waiting keeps them safe. That silence protects their pride and their heart. But my friends, silence doesn't protect, it prolongs. It doesn't remove the risk, it only stretches it out, making every moment heavier. The truth is, their silence isn't absence, it's hesitation. It's not indifference, it's hope in disguise. But let's turn this around and look at it from your perspective, because this is where men often fall into the trap. They sense the silence, they feel the gap, and they rush to fill it. They think, if I don't move first, maybe it's over. Maybe I'll lose them. And so they send the text, they break the silence, they show their hand. In that moment, they think they've regained control, but what they've actually done is surrendered it. Because now the balance has shifted. Instead of standing steady in their frame, they've confirmed what the silence was designed to measure, that they still need reassurance more than they need clarity. Here's the Stoic truth. A man who knows his worth doesn't move out of fear. He doesn't chase to soothe his ego. He doesn't break silence to escape discomfort. He knows his peace is not tied to someone else's hesitation. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Their hope, their hesitation, their longing that belongs to them, not to you. What belongs to you is your response." Think of it like standing at a river's edge. On the other side, they're waiting, hoping you'll build the bridge. They don't move because they fear falling in the water. But here's the wisdom. It is not your job to build both sides of the bridge. If the connection matters, they must meet you halfway. And if they never move, the silence itself becomes your answer. That's not loss, that's clarity. Now let's address the fear many of you feel, the fear that if you don't move first, you'll lose them forever. My friends, if silence is all they give you, and if silence is all they can sustain, then what exactly are you losing? Someone unwilling to face their own hesitation. Someone too caught in their pride or fear to be honest. That isn't loss, that's revelation. Because true connection doesn't require chasing. It requires two people, both willing to step forward. Here's another picture for you. Think of silence as a mirror. You're standing in front of it, waiting for it to speak back to you. But mirrors don't talk, they reflect. When you rush to break silence, you're trying to force the mirror to give you answers, but when you hold still, the reflection eventually shows itself. Their silence reveals their inner conflict, and that revelation gives you clarity without you having to chase it. So what's the real challenge here? Patience, discipline, resisting the urge to move first just to soothe the uncertainty, because uncertainty is uncomfortable. It makes your mind spin with questions. Do they still think about me? Do they miss me? Have they forgotten me? But here's the key. You can't let questions make decisions for you. A Stoic man doesn't demand certainty from others. He creates clarity within himself. He knows what he feels, what he wants, and what he's worth, regardless of someone else's silence. And here's the paradox. The longer you hold the silence, the heavier it becomes for them. They hoped you would move first, but when you don't, they're forced to face their own hesitation. They start asking themselves, why haven't they reached out? Have they moved on? Did I wait too long? Their silence, once a shield, becomes a burden, and often that burden pushes them to act. But whether they act or not isn't the real win. The real win is that you didn't betray yourself to break silence born of fear. You didn't crumble under the weight of uncertainty. You chose clarity over comfort. You chose strength over impulse. And that choice makes you the rare man who cannot be manipulated by silence, who cannot be controlled by hesitation, who cannot be bent by hope disguised as games. So here's where we land. If their silence is really just hope that you'll move first, don't mistake it for indifference. Don't chase it out of fear. Don't rush to rescue them from their own hesitation. Stand steady. Because if they truly value you, their longing will eventually outweigh their fear. And if it doesn't, then their silence was never a pause. It was your answer. And that, my brothers, is freedom. Freedom from the illusion that your worth is measured by who moves first. Freedom from the chains of someone else's hesitation. Freedom to live in truth rather than in games. So let's finish with this. Write it in the comments, anchor it in your soul, and show it to the world around you. Clarity over comfort. Say it, own it, live it. And if this message hit you today, if it opened your eyes, press that like button right now, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because silence, in the end, isn't the absence of love. It's a test of strength. And when you choose strength, you never lose.